everyone, welcome back. I did a poll on my Patreon to see what video you all wanted to see next, and you all voted for protection charms found in folk magic. There are so many different protection charms found in folk magic, and it will vary from location to location. It's important to remember that folk magic is heavily influenced on location. It is the belief of the people, so their culture and their history will have a huge influence on the protection charms that can be found in that specific area. With that said, this video isn't going to cover all of the protection charms that are found. That would simply just be a very long video, and even for myself, I do not know all of the protection charms that have been found across Europe. I suggest to start in a specific area that you're most interested in to research some protection charms found in folk magic. One way to do this is our good friend Google, and you can simply search protection charms in the location, or you can also research folk traditions or superstitions or magic or witchcraft. Now, with that being said, these protection charms that I'm going to share with you are widely found in Britain, which is where I study a lot of folk magic for my personal practice. Here are some resources that you can use for some of the research as well. So first we have The Black Toad by Gemma, which focuses on the West Country side of England. Then we have The Cunning Man's Handbook by Jim Baker, who also talks about the practice of English folk magic from 1550 to 1900. And as you can see, this is a very big, extensive book, and like, it's a lot. So this is a great one to have in your library. And last but not least, because I do live in North America and I like to do some research of the folk magic that resides in the country that I live in. So I have New World Witchery by Cory, Hutcheson. If you don't have this book, I highly recommend to add it to your library as well, especially if you live in North America. So these three books do have information about protection charms that are used in folk magic. So first things first, what is a charm? A charm can be of various things. It can be spoken words, it can be written words, it can be a seal or a symbol. It can also be something that has been crafted with the intention of protection. Protection and healing was crucial for people. They needed to protect their health. They needed to protect their belongings. Ironically, from a lot of the times from bewitchment. Being bewitched often led to being ill or loss of their resources, loss of their land, and often poverty. Oftentimes this was the belief. So anything to protect themselves from having to deal with any hardship. They would oftentimes visit someone within their local village that had the resources and knowledge to craft something that would protect them from bewitchment or illness. Oftentimes, if someone would fall ill, they would visit this healer, and the healer would create this charm. And this charm often included written words, or they would speak words, or they would craft something for the folk to take back with them and either wear or carry with them in order to heal from the illness or to heal from the bewitchment that had been casted upon them. And you'll find a lot of the cases that if the folk wasn't healed in time from the duration that the healer had said, or if something bad additionally happened, that's when the accusations of the healer actually being a witch would play into part. There's a lot of these cases that you can find throughout the history of witchcraft and the laws, not only in Britain, but just like across Europe. And it's such a wide topic that I highly recommend you all to further your research about it and just study the different cases that pops up. It's definitely a rabbit hole I have found myself in, and I will say one book that I recommend if you're interested in kind of learning about this particular history, especially in England, but Popular Magic, Cunning Folk in English History by Owen Davies. A really great book to further your research into the history of cunning folk and the difference of that and witchcraft. there are some court cases in here that will help you gain a better understanding. Sometimes charms, like I said, are either spoken or written or crafted. So I'm going to be sharing some of the most popular and probably most commonly used charms that have been found specifically across Britain. Today, in modern traditional witchcraft and in your personal practice, you can modify them to fit into your modern day practice too, with the same intention of protection. The first charm that I'm going to share with you is the abracadabra charm, and that's because I have seen this still pop up today, and ironically the other day I saw an Instagram story where someone actually said abracadabra, but not in a witchcraft magical sense. It was more of a transformation, if you will, of like they're getting ready for an evening out. So I thought it was really interesting how even today the word is used as a look at this transformation. The abracadabra charm can be written on parchment paper, or if you don't have parchment paper, you can also write it on other pieces of paper as well. It is written down, and then each line you are dropping a letter, and so you will come into kind of like an upside down triangle until you have one letter remaining. The healer would instruct the individual to carry this around their neck in order to heal them from the illness that they had fallen ill from, or from bewitchment that they believe that had been casted upon them. You can still use this charm, and like I said, write it on parchment paper, place it in a bag, wear it around your neck, or you can also carry it with you like in your pocket or in your bag. Personally put it into a black charm bag if I have one available, and I will either hang it near my window, or I will place it underneath my pillow, or I will carry it in my purse. This was also the protection charm that I used because it also has been used to banish away evil spirits and the act of banishing something. So much like using the abracadabra and you're dropping letters as you go down each line, kind of creating the upside down triangle, you can also use this and use like other words that you want to banish. Like if there's someone in particular that you want to banish, you can use their name and drop a letter in each line, or you can target something specific. This is the charm that I used in the healing spell for my dog who was experiencing a possible blockage in his intestines just from eating a toy that he wasn't supposed to have. So I wrote down the word blockage and I dropped a letter in each line, and then formed that upside down triangle, where then I placed a black candle on top of it. This is a healing spell that I will be sharing on Patreon later on this month, but that kind of gives you an idea of other ways that you may decide to use the abracadabra protection charm. So it's not only been used for protection, but it can also be used to banish something, and you can even use it kind of like in the reverse way where you build up the energy of something in particular. So you can, if you want to build up your strength or your health or wealth, you can also use it kind of in the reverse way as well, where you're building up the triangle. You can also write this charm by dipping your finger into some blessed water and write it on your windows and your doorways. This is also a really great way to protect your home. The next protection charm is a protection seal by Gemma. So oftentimes this was written on a piece of paper, and much like the other written charms or seals you will find are written on parchment paper and stored in a bag, which you can still do today. And you can either hang it around your neck, store it in your purse, or place it in the thresholds of your home. But this particular seal was also written on parchment paper and just kept close by to the individual in need of protection. So today you can also write it on a piece of paper and store it in a bag if you find yourself at a desk, or even if you want to have some protection at your altar space. You may decide to leave the charm on your altar. You can also leave it underneath your pillow for protection during your sleep, or you can also store it in the thresholds of your home to protect your home. Another charm is a protection charm square found in the Black Toad by Gemma. Again, this is another example that would be written down on a piece of paper, and you can write it on a piece of paper and do some candle magic over it. This was to specifically protect the individual from bewitchment. So not only would this charm protect individuals from illness, but the main purpose of this particular charm square was to protect the individual from any magic that may have been used on them. This would be good to use for like any sort of return to sender spell work. especially if you're wanting to return any sort of magic or curse, hex, whatever it is that you feel has been casted on you. Or you can simply use it in other protections, such as your altar or in the thresholds of your home. Next charm is the Devon Protection Seal charm that is used to protect you from your enemies. This charm is intended to be created out of cast iron on a new moon, so very particular of how it was created as well as the timing of it. Though in modern days we may not always have access to creating this seal out of iron. Another way that it was created was out of gold, which again I don't think is as accessible now as it may have been back then. Once the seal was crafted, you would then fumigate it with some incense such as like red pepper, frankincense, and so then it would kind of charm the seal with the energy of Mars, because that was the correspondence of incenses like this. Once again, you can still modify this by writing it down on a piece of paper and storing it somewhere for protection, whether that is within your home or you can carry it for yourself or use it in other sort of like spell work. You can even write it or like carve it into some candles if you're doing candle magic. I do believe I have even seen like some iron like seals like this on Etsy, so maybe even do some research and see if there's a small business that you can support that's actually making these seals out of iron. The next protection charm that is most commonly used and one that I have seen a lot is the Satyr square. This is a written square of 5 Latin words and was used to work against illness and to protect you from any sort of evil spirits. The exact meaning and definition of these Latin words in particular have been a full discussion, a lot of historians, and so I do believe the Museum of Magic's website has a definition that goes something along the lines of creator to whom I appeal for help controls all our endeavors and all the changes of fortune that befall us. Today you can also write this down like on a chalkboard. I use a chalkboard for some spell work, and you can then place a candle on top of it, again for any sort of protection workings. Also commonly found to be kind of like marked inside door frames and doorways. So if you can't, actually like carve it into your door frames, you may decide to write it on a piece of paper and place it in the door frames instead. Now, the last protection charm that I'm going to share with you is one that I have seen a lot, is the Rowan like cross that is binded by red thread. I believe that the Rowan tree held a lot of protection properties, and it is a sacred tree among like many within Britain and Ireland. If you come across a rowan tree, you may decide to collect some twigs and create like a cross and bind it with the red thread. Red thread is also association with protection. And then you can store this at your altar, or you can carry it with you, wear it. Again, there's so many different ways to kind of apply this, or you can just hang it in, the thresholds of your home, like above the windows or in the doorways. In particular, I have found across Europe, it's not just specific to Britain. So as you can see, a lot of these protection charms, whether they're written or they're seals or they're squares, a lot of the times they are transcribed on a piece of parchment paper, and a lot of them, have particular meanings of targeting like healing properties or like protection against illness or protection against bewitchment. So there are a lot of different spell works that you can use and a lot of different protection charms that you can try and see what works for you. Perhaps you try a different method, such as writing them on a piece of paper and storing them in the thresholds of your home, or carrying it with you, or doing some candle magic. It's entirely up to you, and just experiment, see what works, and once you find a protection charm that really works for you and really resonates with you, keep it and include it in your practice. So as always, thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next one.